Hello and welcome back to Exothermic Plays Games. I'm Exothermic and I've been doing a daily countdown of my 366 favorite video games of all time. Coming in at number 6 is Kingdom Hearts 2. When I ranked the first Kingdom Hearts game as my 32nd favorite game, I talked a lot about how it's a very special game and franchise for me. Even just the opening menu here is emotional to me. When Marie and I got married, the Kingdom Hearts 2 version of Dearly Beloved is what we picked for her to walk down the aisle. The wedding planner and officiant are friends of ours, and they made a custom script for the ceremony, including working in two people finding each other like fate, like Sora and Kairi, intertwined by a shared destiny. Is it corny as hell? Oh yeah. Is it extraordinarily important to my life? Also yes. So that's enough staring at the menu. Let's jump into the game. I'm not going to recap all of the stuff from the first game, so if you're unfamiliar with what's going on there and who the characters are, or even just want a refresher, I suggest you check out that video first. I've linked it in the description here below. I'm going to go pretty in-depth on the early parts of the game and then kind of speed through things once we really hit the main gameplay loop. There's also going to be tons of spoilers, so if you want to avoid those, you can find the timestamp in the description for the combat overview, and then the other timestamp to my more spoiler-light summary of my thoughts. Kingdom Hearts 2 has a very long and very interesting exposition, which is admittedly a little jarring if you go from Kingdom Hearts to the sequel without playing Chain of Memories, but it does eventually get mostly explained here. The big thing is, you're not playing as any of the characters from the first game at the start. You are Roxas, a teenager hanging out with his friends as they wrap up their summer vacation. You're generally doing fun kid stuff through the streets of Twilight Town, like trying to earn money with odd jobs to go see a movie, or planning a trip to this haunted house, or very fun just skateboarding everywhere. It's a great time. I love Twilight Town. I talked a lot about liking Traverse Town in the video for the first game, and as great as it is, Twilight Town is way better. For starters, it's significantly larger with a ton of different districts, especially as we revisit it over the course of the game, and I'm a huge fan of their decisions for which Final Fantasy characters to include this time around. I'll still never get over Vivi's voice in this game, but hey, Vivi's in the game, and I've got some thoughts about Vivi. Also, the music in Twilight Town is terrific. I think as a whole, Kingdom Hearts 2 is Yoko Shimomura's best work, and that woman has had quite the prolific career. As you're playing as Roxas, you get dreams of sorts, of another life, of another world. At first he thinks they're just dreams, but then weird things start happening around him. I mentioned saving up for the movie, right? Well, they're finally going to go to the theater and go see the movie, buy the tickets, and then just as they're about to, Roxas bumps into a mysterious man in a black trench coat, and the money's just gone. He assumes the guy must have stolen it, but then his friends say there was no guy, and he just fell. And then later, when they go to the haunted house, Roxas sees a girl in the window, who we later learn is Naminé, and I'll get to her, but the other kids don't see anything. So more on her and that mansion in a bit. Much of the combat tutorial elements are done in a fun, in-universe manner with a competition that ends summer vacation for the kids called Struggle. Basically, it's a fighting contest, but with foam swords. There's a whole rivalry amongst some of the kids, and it's a fun little subplot, but then things go unexpected as Vivi is tearing through the competition. Little, cute, innocent, harmless, perfect, immaculate, could never do anything wrong in the whole universe, greatest thing ever created, Vivi. I'm not biased, he's just my Discord avatar, and I definitely don't own hand-painted, custom, commissioned art of the kid. Nope. But back to Roxas, it turns out that Vivi is so good at this because it's not actually Vivi. It's a monster called a Nobody, and it pauses time to defeat its enemies. Only it doesn't pause Roxas. It turns out that all of these people, like the man in the coat and the girl in the window, and these nobodies, as we learn, Roxas can see them because he, too, is a nobody. More specifically, he's the nobody of Sora, and the Keyblade appears for Roxas to defeat this nobody. So what are nobodies? Whenever anyone is turned into a Heartless, many people could also get a nobody. For most people, they're these ones, which are called Dusks, like the one possessing Vivi. But for some people, especially those that are very strong of heart, they get a fully intelligent, human-like body. And some of these other nobodies are really interested in Roxas. There's a group of nobodies called Organization 13, and they serve as antagonists throughout this game, but also appear in the later titles a bit. The coolest member of Organization 13, however, is Axel. He's got chakrams that he lights on fire to fight with, and he seems to care deeply about Roxas, begging him to come back, which is confusing because, like, you're just meeting him. Major spoiler here that I'm doing way out of order, but Roxas was actually the 13th member of the organization and went on tons of missions with them, but eventually broke away from it and has been slowly losing his memories thanks to work of this dude who interrupts the fight between Roxas and Axel. This guy, voiced brilliantly by the late, great Sir Christopher Lee, is the actual Ansem the Wise. You know, the guy we killed at the end of the first game. Yeah, whoever that was, they lied about that. They're not Ansem at all. But what's Ansem doing? Saving Sora, of course. This is where stuff gets really confusing to me, and I'll be honest, the Kingdom Hearts storyline and timeline is so convoluted, I'm not entirely sure I understand it, so don't take this as, like, absolutely correct. But basically, Sora is needed as the hero of light, and as he was at the end of the first Kingdom Hearts game, he couldn't really keep doing that. So in Chain of Memories, Ansem lured Sora into Castle Oblivion, and then worked with a nobody named Naminé to erase some of his memories, essentially clearing an infection of his heart. The tricky thing here is that, as we learn, Naminé is a nobody of Kairi, even though she never became a Heartless, but Kairi's heart had been inside Sora for so long during the first game that when Sora became a Heartless, Kairi got a nobody too. It's because of this weird connection that Naminé is able to modify Sora's memories and even exist outside the realms of regular nobodies. Or something, I think. Look, whatever Tetsuya Nomura was smoking 20 years ago must have been some good stuff. The point is, eventually, all of Sora's memories are restored and Roxas disappears, not only in the world, but also from other people's memories as well. After all of that, we're finally in control of Sora, Donald, and Goofy again, and, well, Sora grew up a bit, but his clothes did not. As the trio explores Twilight Town, we run into Roxas' friends, and there appears to be no record of him whatsoever. However, he's in there somewhere, deep within Sora. When you say goodbye to the gang, Sora starts crying but doesn't understand why. Really, it's Roxas leaking out because he's going to miss his buddies. But you've really got to deal with that clothing issue because, like, damn, Sora looks like an idiot. We take a magical train that actually travels between worlds and arrive at this wizard's tower where we find Pete. He's talking to himself and, like an absolute dumb, incompetent person, because he's Pete, accidentally monologues his whole plan to you. He's creating a Heartless army while also making plans to return Maleficent to power. So of course, you beat him up a bunch and then go inside to the tower, which belongs, it turns out, to the master of Disney magic himself, Yen Sid. I love Yen Sid. one of my absolute favorite Disney films ever made is Fantasia. Music has always been a big part of my life, and growing up I watched Fantasia on VHS so many times. The magic of matching the classical compositions to the brilliant, beautiful hand-drawn animation is just one of the most breathtaking efforts ever done in animation. And of course, my favorite part of Fantasia is the Sorcerer's Apprentice. A lot of my favorite fictional characters are rooted in magic and spellcasting, and a lot of that comes from that. So yeah, I love Yensid. With his help, and also from the good fairies from Sleeping Beauty, Sora gets a great new outfit that, one, isn't 3 sizes too small, but 2, has way bigger zippers, so I'm sure Nomura could finally sleep at night. In all seriousness, I like this look a lot, and that's not even getting into the mechanical functions, which I'll cover pretty soon here. With all of the exposition and explaining that Yensid does out of the way, it's time to get moving. We're looking for King Mickey and our buddy Riku, and we've got a lot of worlds to search. The first world you need to get to is one of the last from the first game, Hollow Bastion. With Maleficent gone, Leon and crew were able to reclaim their world, making this the largest concentration of Final Fantasy characters you'll ever see again in this Final Fantasy/Disney crossover, because from what I've seen of the later titles, that ratio dips really hard into one direction after this game. I'm going all out on the sightseeing for this video because the vast majority of the game is just playing through Disney movie plots. Is that original? Definitely not. Is it exciting? Only sometimes. Is it a ton of fun for me? Absolutely. I think this game does an even better job with the level design, at least on average, than the last time. So yeah, Hollow Bastion is a pretty cool place without quite as many Heartless as it had before. Very fun. After that, we get our first gummy ship section. I've always loved the gummy ships, but they're way better in Kingdom Hearts 2. There's a lot more customization we can do, and the level design is a huge step up, including some really awesome boss fights and things like that. But more importantly, there's way more blueprints, including several across multiple different styles of ships. I especially like the fancy ships that are in the shapes of different characters, like the Moogle and the Cactuar, and some of the other Heartless that you fight. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Every game is made better by adding at least a little Star Fox to it, and this is no exception. We're getting close to me not being able to say that anymore, because there's only 5 games left. So we've got some options for where to go. I'm a big Mulan fan, so we're going there first, for sure. Like most of these worlds, especially the new ones, we're going through Disney plots, but with added wrinkles from the Heartless, just like last time. The variety of Heartless in this game is much improved from the first game, and every world has a ton of unique Heartless there, with all sorts of unique strategies about them. Combat in Kingdom Hearts 2 is pretty similar to the first overall. You have a menu that you navigate in real time with attacks, your spells, your items, but there's a ton of new stuff too. The first thing that's obvious, and really the thing that changes a big dynamic of the game, is the reaction button. We're playing on the PC port of the HD remaster to record this, but I'm so used to the PlayStation 2 controls, I'll use those buttons. I played a lot of this game on PlayStation 2, getting 100% completion on Jiminy Cricket's journal. At various points in combat, a button will light up above your command menu, but it also kind of appears over the enemy or ally or whatever it is that's related to on the screen, so you don't need to just stare at that menu. It's there. You press the triangle button and do whatever it is. Sometimes this is going to be enemy-specific actions, like dodging around Nobody Dusks. But often, it's like team combos with your allies. These are huge things for the combat and add a lot more spectacle and variety, especially when you consider these combos with the guest party members in each world, making your actual combat strategy change from place to place at least a little. Speaking of change, it's time to talk about that special mechanical function your new clothes have. You have something called a drive meter in this game, and that's used for a few things. Summons return like before, and they're pretty similar. They fight alongside you, they do their cool big spell effect, and then they go away. That uses charges of the drive meter now. But more importantly, you can change your outfit a little and dual wield. There's several drive forms you can take, and they generally have their own strengths and weaknesses. For example, Valor form is very offense oriented, and that's why you get the dual wield here. But Wisdom form instead gives you a ranged magical attack from your Keyblade, and you get to kind of slide around, moving very fast as you shoot at enemies. Master Form and Final Form offer more balanced but still quite powerful benefits, and they're all a lot of fun and the absolute highlight of this game's combat. The improvements here, along with the wedding connection, are perhaps the biggest differences from the first game that put this title in the top 10, and the original just barely sat outside of December. But they're not the only ones. If you came here from the timestamp to avoid spoilers, now's the time to duck back out and skip to the end of the video, so I'll see you there. Bye-bye. Alright, for the rest of you, going to Beast's castle is pretty cool, because Beast was out of place in the last game, and we never got to really see Belle. I mean, she was already captured. We're pretty much just spending time in and around the castle itself, and I love Beauty and the Beast, so spending all of this time lurking around this dark, dusty, damp place as we help Beast with the darkness that's eating away at his heart is a great time to me, and it actually is one of the most fitting spots to the game to work in the Heartless presence into the story. Moving on, the Olympus Coliseum is back, and it's fun to do the little tournaments and stuff again, but that's not really why we're here. Hades has some much bigger plans in store for us than last time, and we get thrown into the Underworld. The Underworld is a really great expansion for one of the most disappointingly small worlds in the first game, and also introduces another one of my favorite Final Fantasy characters, Auron. If you know the story for Auron, you know how extraordinarily fitting it is for him to be here. And if you don't, then just, wait a little. The Hydra fight is pretty fun, and then we get a nice little keyhole sequence, though these are different keyholes than the ones we interacted with in the first game. Basically, we're opening pathways for us to use to continue our search for the King and Riku, but at the same time, Maleficent has returned and is joining back up with Pete to continue pumping out Heartless. Finally, after an entire full-length game focused on Disney plots, and after an entire length game as a semi-sequel on Game Boy Advance, we get to Donald, Goofy, and Mickey's world. We get to go to Disney Castle, finally. Getting this little Mickey Mouse March arrangement is fun, and I enjoy the castle itself, but Mickey's not home, which is sad. But Minnie is, though, and she's concerned about some evil stuff happening in an important room containing something called the Cornerstone.
So, do you know where he is?
Very funny is that Minnie gets to actually fight with us, and she doesn't do, traditional combat. She's, kind of crazy regal spellcaster, and it's really cool, and the queen is kind of badass, but unfortunately the Cornerstone, this relic that's so critical, has been corrupted. Going back in time to the original Walt Disney black and white animated shorts is probably my absolute favorite part of this game. It's so unique and refreshing, plus it has, I think, some of the greatest enemy variety out of any of these worlds. We've got two different timelines of Pete running around. First we have the simple rapscallion who's clashing with a young Mickey far before he's, the king. But also we've got the Heartless Commander who is up to all sorts of evil deeds, and he's the source of the corruption here. The short version of what's going on is we need to go help Mickey confront the Heartless in a handful of different shorts, like the one where he stops a building on fire, or the one where there's these plain Heartless that are shooting stuff, and it's really fun. This is all just overwhelmingly charming. It is by far the most cartoonish section of any of these games, and the stylistic choice to make everything black and white was just perfect. Love, love, love this section of the game. Unfortunately, you know what I don't love? how they massacred Atlantica. Oh man, getting the Little Mermaid world in the first game was terrific. I loved the verticality that the swimming mechanics added, and the whole level design was great with the riptides and the castle and the wandering mazes through the Ursula's lair. There was all sorts of great areas to explore, and just like all the shipwreckage was really fun, and just have some great adventure. And in this game, it's a very bad rhythm game, and literally nothing else. Moving on. Another one of my favorite additions from Kingdom Hearts 2 is adding Port Royal, the world for Pirates of the Caribbean. These movies are terrific, and I love them, and while admittedly, this is probably some of the worst voice matching in this whole franchise, because obviously, they didn't have the budget for Johnny Depp, it makes for a lot of terrific combat. The new worlds are always fun, because we get to focus, at least at first, on the traditional storyline. This one's just about the first Pirates movie, and I actually think that has the overall best conflict of them all, so that's good. Jack is great, Will is great, Elizabeth is there, Barbossa is phenomenal, but more importantly, you get to actually experience Port Royal as a town. It's awesome having all of these actually towns in cities in Kingdom Hearts 2. In the first game, it was pretty much just Traverse Town. But here, we have Twilight Town, Hollow Bastion, Port Royal, Agrabah, and there's some calmer hubs in most of the other worlds as well. Oh, and you can do some of those odd jobs that Roxas got to do. Remember the skateboarding minigame I mentioned? You can skateboard through Port Royal too, and there's all sorts of records you can track in Jiminy's journal. It's a great place to skate, and the whole thing makes me kind of wish we could get a Disney-fied Tony Hawk's Pro Skater someday. Also, how wild is it that we got the most guns blazing, crime is cool Disney movie in this game? Because, man, we're doing crimes, we're pirates. Alright, moving things along, we go to Agrabah again and have a reason to check out the Cave of Wonders, and it's nice and ooh and ah, and we're gone. Halloween Town is back on the menu, boys! This is probably my favorite world in the first game, and it's pretty good here too. This time, there's something wrong in Christmas Town, and something is heartless. It's pretty cool having Sora meet Santa. There's a funny thing where Riku gets thrown under the rug for Sora thinking the dude wasn't real, and I love the juxtaposition of the two holiday towns in this world, and the Heartless specific to these locations are some of the coolest designs in the whole game. But we've got another unique and new world to go to. In the first game, Simba was the first summon we learned. Well, in the sequel, we get to go to the Pride Lands, only now we are animals. Do you understand how hilarious it is to me that Goofy, a dog person, becomes a turtle, and Donald, whose full legal name is Donald the Duck, becomes a different bird that is not a duck? Just absolutely mind-blowingly dumb and hilarious. Running around as a lion is pretty cool though, and your combat translates surprisingly well. And admittedly, you're a very cool looking lion, like they went all out. But we go through the storyline of the first Lion King. Mufasa dies, Scar takes power, Simba runs away. We help restore Simba to power. People know the Lion King. It's simple stuff. But finally, we're at the second to last new world to talk about. But first, we can revisit Twilight Town. Every time we go back there is a good time to me, and I love exploring more and more of that world. But importantly, the crew back there has seen Kairi, but now she's gone again and you just missed her. But that means she's running around, presumably looking for you and looking for Riku. It's great to hear she seems to be alright so far, but also dangerous that she's running around without any help. But you've got to keep keeping on, and we head back to Hollow Bastion for one of the most unexpected parts of this game. They've got a supercomputer there, and you get to enter the world of Tron. Tron is such a unique and cool movie, and this is really the turning point of the game's story as well. In addition to dealing with corruption in the system, you learn a lot of stuff about the construction of, apparently, the universe and Kingdom Hearts itself, the location, not the game. I especially like the light cycle parts of the Tron world, and just overall, it's one of the most uniquely stylized sections of any of these games, and has some really excellent combat and world exploration. But when you hop out of there and learn the secrets to Ansem the Wise and the Door to Darkness, who else appears but King Mickey? You've finally caught up with each other, and now he can fill you in on everything, explaining all the weird things going on with the greater plot of these games, so now it finally makes sense. He doesn't explain shit. But after we all get reunited, the game's turn comes, as the Heartless are no longer the biggest enemy. The organization are making their move, and they've been manipulating things behind the scenes this whole time. Each boss fight against an organization member as you go through the rest of the game is increasingly challenging and memorable, and they're a lot of fun. Personally, I think Nobodies in general are more fun to fight than Heartless, and we do finally learn some things. The leader of Organization 13 is Xemnas, the nobody for Xenohort, who is the guy that was pretending to be Ansem in the first game. I promise this all makes lots of sense. They've got an evil plan. They captured Kairi and are holding her hostage so they can manipulate Sora. Plus, it turns out that every time we kill a Heartless over all of these games, we release its heart, which gathers within Kingdom Hearts, and Organization 13 aims to blow it up or something to recover enough hearts to make themselves whole again and be truly alive, as opposed to merely empty shells. This means that every time we fight the Heartless, all we're doing is making the organization and the Nobodies even stronger and more plentiful. It's a real conundrum. There's this giant fight between Heartless and Nobodies at this stage of the game, and Maleficent shows up to actually help you. It's really cool and unexpected, and shows a lot more depth to her motivations than just looking for absolute control and dominance. So now we know who our true enemy is, and we go through pretty much the whole game again, revisiting every world, but this time hunting down the organization and stopping them from enacting their behind-the-scenes plans throughout each of these worlds. The back half of the game is significantly harder for combat, needing to time a lot of these dodges and other reactions to the Nobodies far more reliably, and the organization members themselves all offer new and refreshing bosses and subplots compared to just following along Disney lines. For example, in Port Royal, when we dealt with Barbossa, that should have been the end of the curse, right? But an organization member sees the treasure and is doing some interesting stuff with it, and we have to stop them, and it's all very fun. It's all actually original storylines, which is refreshing for these games as much as I love the Disney plots. But throughout this entire back half of the game, we're being helped by what appears to be a member of the organization, but we can't figure out who. It turns out to be Riku trapped in Xenohort's body. This whole plot culminates in heading to the world that never was, which is a really awesome level design, like an abandoned city with Castle Oblivion at its center, which is the seat of Nobody Power. And this brings back a lot of memories of Roxas for Sora. His memories are starting to return as the two meld more into one singular entity. We learn why Axel has been helping us all along, and it's because he still sees Roxas within us, and when he was a member of the organization, they were best friends. Beating Axel is a pretty emotional moment because he's forced to fight us against his will, and in his last moments, he saves us to get where we need to go. We seem to be trapped, however, and it's not looking good, until Kairi jumps in to save us. But then she gains a Keyblade as well, becoming the fourth Keyblade Master, completing the shared destiny that Sora, Riku, and Kairi possess, along with King Mickey rounding out the four. Finally reunited, Sora and Kairi have a wonderful moment together, only for their nobodies to emerge from themselves in spirit, and we learn that Naminé and Roxas were also in love, and now everybody gets to be together with counterparts from opposite worlds, pulling Sora and Kairi, and then Naminé and Roxas all back together again. It's great. It ties back to that stuff I mentioned at the start of the video about fate and destiny, and I'm a big fan of this resolution to the game. Only this isn't the resolution to the game. There's one more fight, a great, big, epic fight against Xemnas as he tries to blow up Kingdom Hearts and take everything with him, and it's up to Sora and Riku to team up. Basically, the fight is all quick time event reaction stuff, and it's pretty easy, but all spectacle and a lot of fun. With Xemnas defeated, Sora and Riku enter the darkness, and to discover it's actually really beautiful, surprisingly. There's this beach, and they resign themselves to staying there as its guardians forever. Until a message in a bottle, that is, shows up. It's from Kairi, and she's opening up her heart to them. As a princess of heart, she's able to burst through the darkness and bring them home, which really feels like a perfect conclusion to the franchise. But sure enough, there's a lot more of these games that I have not yet played, in part because I thought that Kingdom Hearts 2 was the perfect conclusion to the franchise, though now that I've got the PC ports on Steam, I'm making it a priority to do it. Kingdom Hearts 2 is a culmination of a lot of things for me. It's like the perfect blend of childhood nostalgia on top of gripping, engaging combat mechanics that offer more depth in a way that at the time, 11, I was able to really appreciate. Is it really the 6th greatest game ever made? Probably not, but it ticks so many boxes for me, from mechanics to aesthetics, and it really nailed the aesthetics, finding its stride and making the game something truly its own, as opposed to just an homage to two other franchises that I do love. But it's also got great personal importance to me that's only strengthened as the years have gone on, with how my wife and I have been able to connect over it and create new memories. In addition to the stuff on our wedding, we went to Disney World for our honeymoon and plan to go back in the next couple of years as an even bigger trip for a milestone anniversary. The opening and closing song for this game is, again, brilliantly performed by Hikaru Utada, and this one's a lot more serious than the last, showcasing a growth and maturity amongst the characters who now find sanctuary in each other. And I've got to say, that's something I can identify with on an incredibly deep level.
What's left of me? What's left of me? You show me how to see that nothing is whole and nothing is broken. And you and I.
Join me tomorrow as I talk about my 5th favorite game, where I see how all of my decisions over a 5-year period of gaming pay off.
My sanctuary, my sanctuary.